Angle on America is back with President Donald Trump heading to his next big international meeting, the G20 summit in Argentina. The Global 20, the largest 20 economies in the world. There is a lot on the agenda, including a testy and difficult relationship between the United States and China. Seems to be getting worse by the day. Chinese President Xi Jinping will be there. So will this man, Russian President Vladimir Putin. And so will the controversial Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, on his first international trip since that scandal involving murdered Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, which, of course, U.S. intelligence has concluded was authorized by the Crown Prince. Donald Trump is still standing by his man. For more, Republican strategist Corey Crowley is standing by at our studios in Washington. Let's bring him in. And Steve Farnsworth at the University of Mary Washington in Virginia, also standing by. So, Corey, I'll start with you on this one. What do you think needs to be priority one for the president at this summit?
Well, priority one, Todd, needs to be the China relationship. It's what affects the U.S. economy the most. Of course, sentiments in the United States are running high with the Saudis. Also, there's still interest in Russia, and they're meddling in the elections and heightened because of the current skirmish with Ukraine. But the number one thing has to be getting this tariff and trade war under control with China, because it's affecting so many sectors of the U.S. economy. And so I think the president's got to have a fruitful and positive meeting there. He said that if it isn't, he's going to slap another $267 billion worth of tariffs on China following this meeting. And so the stakes are extremely high. And I think that they need to find a way, he and the Chinese president, to cool the rhetoric here, cool the war, and find a way to come together and get a fairer trade going on that's better for the workers and the producers in both of our economies, because it's hurting China as well.
Steve, the New York Times reporting just that the president is going to be really focusing on this and perhaps looking for an off-ramp past all the rhetoric and the bluster and this growing trade war. Do you agree? Is this priority one?
Oh, it's absolutely the key priority. Whether you're talking about manufacturing or agriculture, high tech, all kinds of industries in North America are dependent on a relationship with China that allows for goods and services to move more freely than they're moving right now. These tariffs are poisonous for American agriculture, huge declines in the value of American crops because of the limited ability to export. It's really bad news in every sector. The challenge, though, for Donald Trump is how he really comes down from the position that he's put himself in. He's offered up a promise that the tariffs will continue to escalate until China cooperates. But from the point of view of China, the idea is that America may be the country that ends up blinking first. But in the meantime, it looks like we're in for more pain going forward.
All right, let's dig a little deeper here into some of the palace intrigue and talk about Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump and this meeting here. Corey, what are you going to be watching for?
Well, I think looking for a tougher Donald Trump than we saw the last time he met with Putin in person. Especially with what's happened right now in the Ukraine and with these warships, Donald Trump needs to take a definitive and solid, strong stand against President Putin, letting him know that these actions in Crimea and the Ukraine are not acceptable, that these ships and sailors need to be returned immediately, or else there will be consequences. Because the fact is, the president is not going to be able to protect Putin from the consequences of this that Congress is going to put down if there isn't some movement on behalf of the Russian president. The United States Congress is extremely angry about this. They have already been angry enough at Russia about other things and with the annexation of Crimea. But now to have this act of aggression, I think you're going to see, especially Democrats, when they take over the House next January in just a few short weeks, put some very tough sanctions on Russia that the president's going to have a hard time vetoing if there aren't some concessions by Putin.
Yeah, Steve, what are you watching for in terms of the Russian connection, so to speak?
Yeah, well, this is another case where Donald Trump really got off on the wrong foot in international relations and really has to change his approach. When you're thinking about the situation in Russia, as my fellow panelist has mentioned, the situation in Ukraine has made a very bad situation worse. When you're looking at meddling in the elections in the United States, when you're looking at the Mueller investigation, when you're looking at the aggressiveness, the continuing and expanded aggressiveness with respect to territory that Russia has claimed from Ukraine and now basically is blocking international sea lanes. You're looking at an extraordinarily bad situation from the point of view of the Trump administration in terms of where they have been as friendly with Putin as they've been. And no doubt about it, Congress is infuriated. They're furious about this situation, and the pressure on Trump to be more aggressive with respect to Putin is really growing. The question is whether he'll respond to it, because one of the things that we've learned in the Trump presidency so far is the more pressure that's on him to change, the more he doubles down in the position that he's in. So it's anybody's guess, it seems to me, where this mercurial president will end up. Will he bend to what Congress wants? Even Republicans in Congress don't much like Putin. Or will he continue to double down on the extraordinarily friendly relationship with Putin that doesn't seem to be paying off in terms of Russia behaving less like an outlaw internationally?
All right, and let's also talk about the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, who is, in my understanding, already there. He is in Buenos Aires. This will be the first opportunity for him to actually be on the world stage amid this huge controversy over murdered Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and the world saying, where is the U.S. leadership on this? Donald Trump really seems to be standing by his man, in this case, the Crown Prince. Seems like perhaps economic and military alliances are really priority number one for this president. This is going to be pretty interesting to see whether the Crown Prince is sort of the skunk at the picnic, Corey.
Yeah, well, I don't think you're going to look for him to be much of a skunk toward Donald Trump. The fact is, Trump's made it really clear that he stands with the Saudis on this issue. And you saw it even today with this briefing that took place in the Senate. The White House apparently refusing to send the CIA director up to give the briefing, even though she would have been the logical person to send. But that's because her agency has sided against the Saudis in their findings through the facts. And the president didn't want to present that facts and that foot to Congress, so sent up his own Secretary of State and Defense Secretary, which just has you scratching your head about where these guys play into this whole conversation. So I think the president's going to go there, maintain an extremely tight relationship with the Saudis. He's made it clear he thinks selling them jets and military weapons is more important than any thing that they might do that is humanitarian in nature and evil and vile. And so I think he's going to maintain the status quo there. I think that the Europeans are going to end up having to be the leaders, which is just, adding to our decade of America on the back bench when it comes to global policy.
It's interesting, too, Steve, just building on what Corey was saying, when you think about how this is all playing out in terms of the Saudis wanting this story to sort of go away. And, of course, 2 months later, it still is not going away. And the Crown Prince sort of saying, there's nothing to see here. How do you think we're going to see this relationship unfold between the United States and Saudi Arabia, which, let's be honest, is the most important one for the Saudis?
Well, I do think that things are not going to change much. I think that that Trump personally has benefited from Saudi money in terms of his developments, and so many of the questions that Trump looks at in terms of American interest are actually replaced by Trump family interests. And so I don't anticipate any changes here, despite how horrific the situation is and how widespread in the intelligence community in the U.S. and internationally the conviction is that the Crown Prince was in the middle of this process. What you will see, though, I think, and this is one of the things that's going to change come January, a Democratic House is not going to be quite so indulgent to the administration in terms of shaping the narratives the way that it wishes. I think that the CIA director will be giving a full accounting in public come January about what they know, and that'll be a real challenge for the administration to continue to make the case that the Saudi government shouldn't be punished for the actions so horrific at that consulate in Istanbul.
We love having the two of you on, as always. Thank you so much for this, gentlemen.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.